That might be something that you're like, "Oh, I don't struggle with lying." Um, but as I always told my kids growing up, if your intention is to deceive, it's a lie. And so we're going to dive into that today from the second chapter of Gary Scazzaro's book, The Emotionally Healthy Woman. So, if you're new to me, I'm Cove, and I am a spiritual mentor and an emotional health coach for Christian moms who want to be emotionally healthy. They want to change their life so that they can model that and equip their kids for their calling. Because as a mom, that's part of our calling. There may be other things, excuse me, but equipping our kids for their calling is a huge part of our calling. So, this chapter, Quit Lying, I said from Gary Scazzaro's book, The Emotionally Healthy Woman, is challenging because she talks about the ways that we lie. And so, hugging someone and smiling and saying, "Oh, so good to see you," when you'd really rather not see them, or saying yes to giving somebody a ride when you'd really rather just go straight home, or um, telling your husband that you don't mind if he works late when you actually do. Um, and so many of these things that like have come in under, well, I'm just being nice. Um, Scripture never calls us to be nice. Scripture calls us to be kind, which is different. And so maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more. But so there's all these ways that we lie. Like we can lie with our behavior and our responses. Not It's not always just an out and out lie of saying I'm wearing a blue shirt when I'm wearing a black shirt. Um, Sometimes it's those intentions and behaviors. But why do we do that? Well, in our culture, in our families, unfortunately, in our churches, there's all these unspoken rules about what it means to be a good daughter or to be a good Christian. And so to appear to ourselves and to others that we're not breaking any of those rules, we end up lying. And it's been, I'm just being nice, or even that you're being loving. But if it doesn't have the truth, it's not really love. It just might make us more comfortable. Or we're hoping to make somebody else more comfortable. Um, so unspoken rules like don't rock the boat. It's not okay to be sad or angry or discouraged. Um, try and I wrote down some of them that she gave. Don't show feelings. Don't show off. Don't fight. Always be good. Um, don't talk back. That was an interesting one. Always be good. I always wrote that down twice, I guess. Obey authority always. Um, so that don't talk back and obey authority always, I wouldn't have thought of that leading to lying, but I can definitely see that it has led to not knowing how to have hard conversations, because anything that contradicted what was said is seen as backtalk and it's just shut down, instead of maybe there's a conversation we need to have here. And whether that was with your parents or whether that is with church leadership or authority, like that always obey authority, you just never question. You just always obey. And that is not healthy, because all human authority is fallible. You can always obey the authority of Scripture and God, yes, but to always obey human authority without question is not healthy. And if you have a human authority who cannot be questioned, they are not healthy. Um, and it's not like they're bad, evil people and trying, most likely they're just wounded just like you, or wounded differently than you. It's manifesting differently than you, but the unhealthiness is coming out of wounding. It's not hardly ever coming out of maliciousness and whatever. It's coming out of wounding and self-preservation. But to have it be part of our culture that it is not okay to question authority or to talk back or these things makes it so we can't have the conversations we need to have to be emotionally healthy. And so we end up lying, um, of saying that things are okay. Or that's what just came to mind is so many people that change churches because, and people change churches for wrong reasons, but sometimes people change churches because they tried to talk to authority and it wasn't okay to question the authority, to even get questions answered. And but when they leave, they say, "Oh, God just told us time to go." And there's wisdom in this too, because not everybody needs the whole truth. That's wisdom. We can't share everything with everyone. So in some cases, God called us somewhere else is the truth. It's just not the whole truth. But there's situations where that's as much truth as the person needs to know. As long as that's not, as long as there's places where you can take the whole truth. Because some people aren't safe to share the whole truth with, but so there would be select places to share, like what were the things that led to God saying it was time to go somewhere else. If it wasn't just simply one day God said it's time for you to go. Like there's probably some other things happening there before. And so kind of got off on a tangent there, I think. But so we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves about, um, I can handle this. Why do we do that? Because we think it's not okay to get help. We think we're supposed to be able to handle it. So we have that unspoken rule that I'm supposed to be able to handle this. I'm whatever age, or I've been in the church this long, or whatever. I should be able to handle this. And so we lie to ourselves and tell us what we can, or because we're afraid of depending on other people. Um, and so we lie to ourselves. It's not true. We can't handle it. God built us to be in a body. He built us to need Him. He built us to need others. Um, so we can lie to ourselves. We can lie to others. I kind of gave some examples when I started of, saying you don't mind if your husband works late when you really do, but like you're trying to not mind. You want it to be true because you know that it's going to help out the family, or they can't help it, or whatever, but it's still not honest. It's still lying. Um, and that's part of the unspoken rules that Gary talks about in her book. Was she didn't believe it was okay to be angry or upset or sad. And so she lied about those things to herself, to others, to God, because it wasn't okay. She wasn't a good Christian if she was feeling those things. And she said, the prayer, God, restore to me the joy of my salvation, and just pray that as she's feeling more resentful and more frustrated and sad and all these things, before she got to her big quit. Um, and I was just thinking that, like, he's sitting in heaven going, I want nothing more than to restore the joy of your salvation. But you got to deal with the anger and the sadness and the resentment to make room for the joy. And I can't just take it away from you. Like, you have to deal with it. Emotions are to travel through our life. And when we try and ignore them, it's like stuffing them in the hall closet and thinking that somehow it's just going to get taken care of or suddenly become useful or whatever. And no, it's still there every time you open the closet going, hey, pay attention to me. There's something you need to deal with here. And that is what's stealing your joy. It's not that God doesn't want to give you that joy, or that you're sinning. Well, I guess you could be sinning if you're holding on to resentment, but it's not like you're intentionally living this life of sin. It's just there's these emotions that need to be dealt with. They have a message for you that something needs to change. And And also lying to God, because I think certain things just aren't acceptable to say to him. It's not okay to tell him that we're mad, or that we think he's doing a bad job or whatever. And the truth is, he already knows. But sometimes we still try not to tell him. And so stop it. And something she brought out that I thought, like, oh, wow, that is so challenging to me, and reminded me of another book I read, or the book Overwhelmed, that I read by, I think it's Kathy Lipp and Sherry Gregory. But in The Emotionally Healthy Woman, Gary gives the example of a woman comes home with a new haircut and asks her husband if he likes it. And he's like, nah, not really. And so she goes through, like, yeah, how could have he answered differently and still, speak the truth in love and whatever. But the real problem is that it wasn't an honest question. She wasn't aware of what she needed, what she was really wanting. Because what she was really needing and really wanting was, like, being in a place of, like, I'm feeling insecure and not okay, and I want you to tell me that I'm okay. But instead of asking, can you tell me that I'm okay? Can you tell me what you think of me? She says, do you like my haircut? So, like, setting him up for, like, there's no way to win. Like, he could say he likes the haircut when he doesn't, and then he's lying, and that's going to come back to bite him. Or he can say he doesn't like the haircut, and then her feelings are hurt. But it's not because he told the truth that her feelings are hurt. It's because she wasn't putting out what she really needed. And so her feelings are hurt, and she's disappointed because she didn't say what she wanted. And in Overwhelmed, Sherry talks about that with learning, and it's the skill of awareness, learning to be aware and be able to check in with yourself of, what do I actually want here, before you put out a request. And I don't remember exactly the example Sherry gave, but something about sharing something she'd been learning or something, and, like, her husband just came back with an answer of, like, well, here you go, like, this is the answer, and her feelings were hurt and everything. So going back and realizing that what she wanted was just a place to share. She didn't want any feedback in that situation. And so to be able to be more honest, to recognize, like, okay, am I wanting help right here? Do I just need to voice my opinion? Do I just need to hear that you understand how I feel? What is it that I'm needing in this? So that can communicate that and set the other person up to actually meet that. And so while we can quit lying, which is challenging enough because it shows up in so many ways that we don't even think of as lying, and so many culturally acceptable ways of lying, to be nice, to be loving. And I said to come back, the difference between nice and kind. So being nice in our culture is kind of doing whatever in the moment to make somebody feel good. And that's not actually kind. And fruit of the Spirit is kindness, not niceness. Kindness goes with love, and it's doing what's best for someone. But so if what someone needs to be corrected, we're going to do that in a kind way, where in our culture that wouldn't be nice to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong. But it is kind to tell someone, this is hurting our relationship, or this is impacting your work, or whatever the situation is, and do it in a kind way. So the second part of it, quit lying, but the second part is where it's really challenging, is to start practicing telling the truth. And so she's got 4 characteristics of telling the truth. What does that look like? What do we need to practice when we practice telling the truth? So the first one is respectfully. We need to tell the truth respectfully. So we don't get to be rude. We don't get to not take the other person's feelings into consideration. We still have to be respectful when we share the truth. And then she says honestly. which is kind of like, well, if you're being the truth, isn't that honest? But um, just kind of get back to that. What are your motives? Are you saying what you're saying for the right reasons, or do you have motives and you're not communicating those? So look at when you're telling the truth, make sure that you're communicating your motives in that. Why do you need to share this truth? And clearly, don't hint at things, don't beat around the bush, speak the truth clearly. One of the examples she gave is saying, well, I'd like it if you'd help with dinner sometimes. That is not clear. And as Brene Brown says, clear is kind. Because, like, okay, you'd like me to help with dinner sometime. Like, that's not helpful. But if I say, I'd like you to help with dinner on Tuesdays and Fridays and make sure that you have all the groceries you need, okay. Then the other person can be like, well, Tuesdays and I don't remember what days I said, like, that doesn't work, but I could do Tuesday and Saturday. Or, whatever. Like, then you can have a conversation that's clear about what you're wanting and where you're. So, respectfully, honestly, clearly, and timely. So, think about the timing. If your husband just came home from an awful day at work, is not the time to bring up that he forgot to do whatever errand you asked him to do. If your kid just came home from school and you can see on their face that it was not good, that's not the time to talk to them about the mess they left in their bedroom. Connect, and it's not lying. You're just waiting till the appropriate time to talk about the truth. If it's going to be a harder truth, if the truth you need to share is how much you love and appreciate them, go for it. But so think about those things as you practice telling the truth. And as my encouragement would be to spend a week observing how often you lie or are tempted to lie, and kind of get a handle on that. If it's like, oh, it's just this one little area, or it's just these couple things, so I feel like I can start practicing telling the truth in those areas. But if there's more, if it's like, oops, like this has become a lifestyle because of the culture I grew up in and everything, then you might want to take some more time just gaining awareness of where you're lying and looking at why you're lying so that you can heal some of those emotional places as you start practicing telling the truth, because it's going to be hard to practice telling the truth. The people you're in relationship with, if they are used to you not telling the truth, it's going to be an adjustment for them. And you can help them with that by saying, I know this isn't what I usually do, but I'm practicing telling the truth. And so, like, it might be different and I'm open to feedback, but like letting you know. So it's a two-part, is stop lying and practice telling the truth, but give yourself grace that there's going to be healing in that, and it's practice. It's going to take time. So I hope that you are enjoying these, and if you are reading along with me, you can comment in the group at any time and put a quote from the book, or like, oh, ouch, this challenged me, or oh, this is so freeing. And yes, that's the truth will set you free. So it's hard, but it's worth it, because our level of freedom is directly tied to the level of truth that we live in. And that's true for like the truth that we speak ourselves, but also the truth of God that we come into agreement with is directly tied to the level of freedom that we live in. So it is worth it. And just bless you this week, and remember that your healing heals generations.